So I went to see 1917 the other day, and it was a pretty damn good movie. And I just wanted to do a little review talking about it because I don't tend to do movie reviews that often. But I really wanted to talk about this film for several different reasons. One is this film is just an absolute marvel of filmmaking, so it is. And also because I find the story very interesting. It takes place during World War One. Follows the journey of these two soldiers, two messengers, Blake and Schofield, sent by their general to travel from one trench through no man's land and through the battlements and stuff where another officer is, and sent to deliver a message to call off an attack that would cost a lot of lives and stuff. From what I know, this isn't entirely based on a real life event, but it's more so based on retellings and recounts from the director's grandfather, Sam Mendes. I can't remember the name of his grandfather, but he told them a lot of stories and stuff because he was an actual messenger in the war himself. So it was more from his recounts that they created a fictionalised version of that within the film. It works well enough, I think. It's very interesting to see how they did it. So the main story follows these two guys as they travel through no man's land and whatever else, trying to evade German soldiers and stuff to deliver the message. And yeah, it's a fascinating story. Oh, and another thing, one of the guys, one of them, their brother, was at this other trench. He was a lieutenant, and he was leading a regiment, and he was going to be involved in this battle. So if they didn't make it in time, he would have probably died. So there was that added incentive of he wanted to get there to protect his brother, or save his brother, which I thought was great. So yeah, that's basically the main story of the film. But the real interesting thing about this film, the thing that really sets it apart, is the way it was shot and the way the story was told. So the director Sam Mendes and the cinematographer Roger Deakins wanted to try and create a film where they shot each scene in really long takes, and they tried to create the illusion. They tried to edit and splice it together to create the illusion that the film was shot in one long continuous take. The way it's done is really clever, and when I was watching the film, because I knew this, I was trying to pay attention to any cuts or any time the camera would distinctly change and the scene would distinctly change. And there was a few times where it was quite obvious. It wasn't obvious as in, oh, it looked bad, but it was obvious as in, see, they would have used that technique. Like, for example, not to spoil too much, but at one point in the film, the camera goes, they go into a room and the camera goes in, inside something. So all the light cuts out, and then for a second or two, the entire screen is black, and that would have been a good place to cut to another scene. It just, like I said, Roger Deakins did an amazing job with the camera, and I've seen, in fact, the big reason why I wanted to see this film and why I got interested in it was by watching some behind the scenes footage, or behind the scenes material they did for this movie that was on YouTube and whatever else, and they showed it, before some other films that I've seen recently. And to give you a clue of just how much hard work and effort went into this film, at one point in the making of this film, when they were filming it, they actually had to stop shooting a scene, and they had to wait for over 2 hours just for the weather to change, just so they could maintain continuity with the weather and everything in the shot. And it just goes to show, it was insane. So it was, because when I was trying to watch the film, I was trying to pay attention to okay, does it change much? Where is the continuity the exact same? For the most part, it pretty much was. The acting as well was pretty good. In fact, one of the things I loved about the film was the two main characters, Blake and Schofield, who were played by, I think get the actors up here, George Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman? Was it Don Charles Chapman? I don't know, is he a French actor or whatever? I don't know, but those two actors, they did an amazing job playing their characters. And the thing I really loved about them was the chemistry that they had throughout the scenes where they interact with each other. It really carries a lot of the film, so it does. And there's some things I do want to talk about them specifically, about what happened in the film, but that's spoilers and stuff, so I'll leave that to the end of the review. All I'll say is that both their characters were really interesting. They were really real as well. They felt like real guys that would have existed. They were also a joy to watch. Like I said, some of the best scenes in this film are just them chatting away as they're walking, and the camera, like I said, is continually watching them. And yeah, they really carried this film for a long part of it. And another thing I really enjoyed about this film was the way it handled the aspect and topic of World War One, and the way they conveyed the lives of these men in the battlefields and trenches and stuff. It really wasn't afraid to show the horrors of war, especially World War One, because If anyone knows anything about World War One, they'll know that it was one of the worst wars to fight in. It was pretty shit. So it was, and it really conveyed that brilliantly. Like the sets and scenery of everything that they did were amazing. Like the trenches themselves were amazing, and just them walking through it, it felt so much like what a real trench would have been like in World War One. And the amount of extras they had, that's another thing. They had so many men, just so many random guys just sitting or standing about, whatever, just showing just how packed these places were. And of course, the other big thing that I absolutely loved was the cinematography. You can't get, I can't talk about all the stuff that I loved in this film without mentioning just how the camera was handled between each scenes, and just like what Roger Deakins did in this film, like taking, you know, these two men from one place all the way over to another, and it just conveying that journey in one, was it 2-hour movie or something, and it shows like the events of like over a day and a half, and it really feels like they're travelling so much and so much time is passing. It was done really well, and there's only, I'll get onto this in the spoiler section, but there's only really one point where, oh, time jumps. Every other point in the film, it's like it's moving as you watch it. The one main thing that I really didn't like in this film, or the biggest disappointment for me, was when one of the soldiers, I believe it was Blake, dies about a third of the way into the film, or it might have been halfway into the film, I'm not so sure. The death scene felt a little bit forced, and it took a good bit out of the film that I'd been enjoying up to that point, of the chemistry between these two guys. We really miss out on that after that. So we do. Although his death scene was handled really well, I just think the way he was, you know, getting stabbed by the guy that crashes right into them with the plane, it seemed a bit forced. So it did, considering everything else they managed to survive. But you know, it does show that, you know, just the brutality of war and stuff. And I also love this. I do love the scene at the end where, you know, Schofield, I'm sure it was Schofield who was the one that survived. He gets to, he completes his mission, meets the officer and delivers the message, and the attack's called off. And thankfully, Blake's brother manages to survive, and he manages to meet him at the end of the film, as played by the great Richard Madden himself. You know, that scene was one of the best scenes in the film. It was very emotional because, you know, he's delivering the news of his brother's death to him, and he's like, at the same time, he's a man, he's an officer or a soldier, whatever, and he's like having to maintain himself in front of his men. But you can obviously see that he's broken inside because he's just been told that his brother's dead, and it's a lot to take in. It was a brilliantly delivered scene. So it was just brilliantly done, and then at the end, I love how he goes and sits at the tree and looks at the picture of his family. And like it's a brilliant parallel to the start of the film, where it opens up with them both just sitting on the fields relaxing, you know, and he's like leaning back next to a tree. It was just brilliantly done. So I think that's the only spoiler things. Oh, the time jump, yeah, I thought that was a bit forced as well, how he sneaks up in the sniper and then he shoots him and then he falls back and then he wakes up hours later and it's night time. But still, it made for some good scenes after that, to be fair. But yeah, I will say that though, the scenes after Blake dies where it's just Schofield on his own, I'm sure it's Schofield, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but I'm sure it's just Schofield is on his own. There are some great scenes with just him, but you do miss out on a lot of that, the banter and the chatter between them, but it's just him, you know, having to survive and stuff, although some of those scenes are great. In conclusion, I think this is just an amazing film. I talked about it before, you know, it's up for, I don't know how many Oscars, it's been nominated for quite a few. I need to repeat this, I don't care that much about the Oscars, but this film was amazing. And yeah, if this film wins Best Film, even though Joker was amazing, I wouldn't have an issue with this film winning at all, because this was such an amazing film. I definitely hope it wins Best Cinematography, because like I said, the way the camera was handled in this film, it was phenomenal, it was spectacular, it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. I hope that people go and see this film, to be honest. Like, really, I 100% recommend this film for anyone out there that's not seen it yet. Go and see it. It's an amazing film, and you do learn a good bit of history. Even though I consider it more a 2020 film, a film of this year, if I was to consider it a film from last year, this would tie with Joker for being my best film of the year for last year. It was that good. The only thing is, comparing it to Joker, they're two very different films, and it's hard to compare them. If either one wins Best Film at the Oscars, I'd just be completely chuffed. So I would. But I do hope this film wins best cinematography, because like, the cinematography in Joker was great. The cinematography in this was outstanding. All I have to say is, thanks Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins and all the other great people that worked on this film. It was incredible. I'll definitely be watching it again when it comes out soon on Blu-ray. And yeah, I completely recommend all you people go see it as well if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.